Will Hardy has a challenge for rookie Ace Bailey. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, the Miami Heat make a move, but they also are reportedly unlikely to sign a backup center. Luka Doncic avoids a serious injury. We're going to talk about all those things, plus the top 5 free agents, according to Bleacher Report, heading into the summer of 2026. We're getting into all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And Will Hardy has a challenge for his rookie Ace Bailey, the Utah Jazz coach, has a challenge for his player where he says this: for Ace, first and foremost, is going to be about building a routine. The NBA is a lot. The number of appearances is far more than what he's used to. The practice, shoot-around games, but it's going to be about sort of him finding his routine, because I think the routine saves you during the season. You don't have to think that much. And Ace Bailey is in an interesting situation, right? Going into, a team in the Utah Jazz that reportedly he did not want to go to. The Utah Jazz taking him anyway, but still being very committed to his development, because the Utah Jazz, more than anything, are looking for a star to develop. They are going to be a bad team until they finally feel like they have their star. I think that's what it's going to. And so hearing that the head coach and Will Hardy has some things that laid out for Ace Bailey, it makes some sense. I mean, when you look at it too, he only played 2 summer league games, do the hit flexor there. And Will Hardy even talked about that, saying this: on the court offensively is going to be a little bit more of playing without the ball, moving around. I think Ace showed he was really active in summer league. He's a good cutter. He can play in off-ball screens. And then defensively, while his body is continuing to get stronger, it's going to be about using his length, because I think that is the real strength of his right now. I think that's how he's going to survive on the defensive end right now. Nothing more for a rookie is you want their coach to have a game plan for them. You want them to have a plan, a routine, and just how they want to use them, what they want to see them working on, rather than just them going out and doing things, right? And while the Utah Jazz are a team that, are going to be tanking for the better part of a decade when it all comes down to it, but I think Ace Bailey and what he has to offer here to this Utah Jazz team is hope, right? That's really what it is that Ace Bailey is offering hope to this franchise. And they're really hoping that he is going to end up developing into that star level upside. And hopefully by then, especially with him going to a team that he didn't necessarily want to go to, is that the hope is that they have built something around him at that point in time to where he's not only comfortable there, but Ace Bailey could be the next player that becomes a star that looks for a bigger market or a different team very early on into his career. But until then, you have the first 4 years of his rookie contract. You then have restricted free agency after there. So the Utah Jazz have a long runway here of trying to figure out exactly not only who and what Ace Bailey is as a player, but also to figure out the makeup of the team. Kyle Filipowski, another player that looked pretty good in summer league, came on a lot in the later half of that season. He's a guy that I think has really good upside on that team also as it stands right now. So they have the guys. Isaiah Collier is another guy that I think has really good upside too when things come down to it. So the Utah Jazz are in an interesting place right now with their franchise, and Ace Bailey in a lot of ways is at the center of that. And what Will Hardy and this Utah Jazz franchise can get and develop out of him over that time is going to be really telling for who and what he's going to be over the course of his career. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. As far as Ace Bailey, the whole thing, just even with the Utah Jazz, I know we didn't talk a lot about the aftermath of him going to the Jazz and not really wanting to go to that team initially, them taking him anyway, but the Utah Jazz are a franchise that's looking for something, and they're looking for hope. I guess hopefully at some point they find it at some point in time. So we'll see what happens there. The next franchise I want to talk about is the Miami Heat. So the Miami Heat signed Drew Smith to a 3-year deal over the course of the weekend. He spent the last 3 seasons with the Heat on a 2-way contract, so they're just locking in somebody who's already been there. We know that they had to get up to the minimum 15 roster spots. They're now signing him for a minimum contract, maintains that cap flexibility, keeps him under the luxury tax, like that move for Haywood Highsmith, which we didn't cover here. They traded Haywood Highsmith, over the course of the week 2 last week. I think that move went down on Friday, and that got them under the luxury tax quite considerably. And so that's the big thing there. They now have some cap space, some flexibility that they can move with. And this really is about maintaining ultimate flexibility for them, but they still have to now fill out the rest of the roster spots. And Drew Smith is a big guy in there. The trade of Haywood Highsmith came as, I wouldn't necessarily say a surprise, but not a lot of Heat fan like that trade because, again, Highsmith is a solid defender, of course, right? But that's really what it comes down to with him. But it seemed like the Heat gave him away for nothing. And, of course, that kind of frustrated teams. For what it's worth, in that move, the Heat got a protected 2026 second-round pick, and the Brooklyn Nets got Highsmith, and they got a 2032 second-round pick. And them being as close as they were to the luxury line, $1.6 million over the luxury tax before this move. This move now gets them well below that, and they have some flexibility to do some other things with. And like many Heat fans are watching, is that what is that going to mean? This deal does allow some flexibility. They, like we said, they still had to get to the 15-man roster spot, so this helps them get there now with the Drew Smith thing. But now they do have some flexibility to move a little bit more as the trade deadline goes on, and that's what I think is really here for the Heat. Do not be surprised if the Heat make a pretty big move between now and the trade deadline. And I think that that's just by design. They got some contracts that they could definitely look to come off of. We already know that Wiggins is a player that they've shopped as well. They can shop that. They still got Terry Rozier under contract. That's another player they can look to move off of at some point there too. So they got some flexibility if they decide to do it. This move gets there. But one thing that people were questioning as well is that a backup center. Well, coming out now that the Heat are unlikely right now to sign a backup center on a standard contract anytime in the near future. They have 14 players under standard contract, 2 on two-way deals, so they still got one more roster spot that they need to do. Now, probably is going to be, we'll see what happens with a two-way contract that they do there. They have worked out Kai Jones over the last week. They've also been linked to Trey Lyles as well. So we'll see what happens when it comes down to that. Keep in mind, Kai Jones is not eligible to sign a two-way contract. So it seems like as of right now, Eric Spoelstra and the Heat are committed to playing Nikola Jovic at the backup center spot while Khalil Ware and Bam Adebayo start in the front court there. Something I'm actually excited to see is that front court of Bam Adebayo and Khalil Ware. I think that can actually be a pretty potent front court in the Eastern Conference. And Bam gets the opportunity to kind of continue rounding out his game and play a little bit more offense. You got Khalil Ware there, who's a really good defender and a rim protector, and we'll see how he grows rebounding-wise under next season. So all those things are there. We'll see what happens when it comes down to that one. But overall, the Miami Heat are a team to watch out how their roster continues to improve or not over the course of the next couple. I mean, they've made some moves, right? They've made some moves. They traded Highsmith. They brought in Norman Powell. Now just signed Drew Smith. They got some other things that they need that they can do as well. The Heat are always an interesting team because of Eric Spoelstra. Like, regardless of wherever the state of that roster is, Eric Spoelstra just makes it even more intriguing because of how good of a coach he is and how good he's at maximizing the talent that's on that roster. So, of course, we'll see what happens there. Luka Doncic over the weekend, he was injured during Slovenia's EuroBasket lead-up game against Latvia. That was on Saturday. A teammate fell onto Luka Doncic's legs and knocked him to the floor in the third quarter of that game. And I know a couple of Mavs fans, they were a little bit worried about it. He limped back to the locker room, but no serious injury there for Luka Doncic, thank God. I'm sure Lakers fans everywhere are breathing a sigh of relief when it came down to that. He was sitting later on, in the second half of the game. He was sitting on the bench with his teammates, so it is what it is. He just signed a 3-year, $160 million extension with the Los Angeles Lakers, and so that's going to see him under contract to the 2028-29 season, where he does have a player option for that season, and he can get out of that deal. So, we'll see what happens. Luka is going to keep the pressure on that Lakers franchise to make sure they're always improving, and, we'll see what happens. But thank God that Luka Doncic did avoid major injury. Now, the main topic today before we get out of here is I want to talk about this list that Bleacher Report put together of the 5 NBA stars that will get all the attention in next year's, trade deadline. And also this goes into offseason as well, looking at that. And so they have here Trae Young at number 1, and we've talked about it. Trae Young definitely is a player that a lot of teams are going to be interested in leading into this trade deadline. Him and Atlanta have not been able to reach a contract extension as it stands right now. No max level offers come for the Atlanta Hawks, which Trae Young has already said. It's a little weird. Got him feeling a little a type of way when it comes to it, but there's no real urgency as it stands right now either, right? They can offer him an extension anytime between now and June 30th. And so we'll see what goes there. But Trae Young has been left reportedly, being left out. De'Aaron Fox, got an extension. Luka Doncic got an extension. And so we'll see. I do think that Atlanta's hesitancy is about the future of this team. How do they see the future shaking out for this team? Is it going to be Trae with these young players that they got, or are they going to pivot and go a different direction to build a different type of team around the young players that they have here? And I really I've said multiple times, I like what Atlanta's building here. I think that Atlanta has a really good mix of young talent with some veterans around it too. You add Kristaps Porzingis here, which could be really good for you. You got Asa Newell there, a guy that I'm really excited about what his potential could be as a defender going forward as well for this team. And so we'll see what ultimately happens with this team going forward, but you can't deny that there are going to be some things that the Atlanta Hawks are going to have to make their decisions on how Trae Young fits. He's still the engine of the offense as it stands right now, but with Asa, Zachary Reese-Share, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, who stepped up tremendously, as looking like he could be a focal point of your team going forward at some point. Like, what happens with that? And in a wide open East, season where the East is more open than ever, and you've made some series with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kristaps Porzingis, you've brought in some of the defense you need around Trae. I'm sure Atlanta really wants to review what this is going to look like before they make a decision long term, and we'll see how that shakes out. Giannis goes without saying. He's always going to be one of the more interesting players to talk about, because at any point in time, if he asks out for that deal, if he asks to be traded, he can hold the whole Milwaukee Bucks franchise hostage. So yeah, he's been committal but non-committal at the same time. As far as he's committed now, but like I've talked about in many episodes, that can change at any point in time. There's going to be different pivot points every season for Giannis Antetokounmpo. The offseason, the trade deadline, at the end of the season. And we'll see what happens with that one. But him being an interesting case, we'll see. LeBron James, that $50 million contract could be very difficult to move, especially when you could just wait to sign him as a free agent at the end of the year. Don't know how intriguing he's going to be as a trade target legitimately, unless a team just really wants LeBron now and can't wait till the offseason. But that money, it's like because you have to give up something serious unless you just got a $50 million expiring contract or a player that you don't care about laying around, which those don't come a dime a dozen. So I think that you're going to have to wait for that. But then the last two parts, Jonathan Kuminga, Coby White. Now, if Jonathan Kaminga does take the qualifying offer, the chances of him being traded are all but not going to happen, right? If he does sign a shorter term deal that's more friendly with the Golden State Warriors that they have offered that could be moved, then of course that's going to be an opportunity there. Restricted free agency wasn't kind to Jonathan Kuminga. I think it's the situation that it's in. And of course, Kuminga and his people are hoping that opens up some next offseason, which is why we've heard things that he could take the qualifying offer and let that happen and just be where it's going to be. We'll see. The relationship between the Golden State Warriors and Jonathan Kuminga is fucked. I mean, just to be 100% honest, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any reconciliation coming in that relationship, and therefore it headed towards a split up in one way or another seems very likely. And so him coming in at number 4 on this list makes some sense. And then lastly, selfishly, Coby White. Now, Coby White is in an interesting scenario where the Bulls can extend him at a 4-year, $89 million contract. He reportedly wants closer to $30 million a year. He can't sign that as a extension because of the deal that he's currently on, the 140% rule on far as extensions on his $12 million contract. So therefore, he's going through unrestricted free agency regardless. Now, if the Bulls do see a situation in which either they doubt, have questions about signing Coby for that amount of money, or they think that there's a chance he may fly in unrestricted free agency, he could very well be. And he's an easier trade chip with his reasonable contract to move, whereas you're probably giving up the Bulls really good assets for it. But moving on from that, $12.9 million. That's the value of Coby White's contract. And so we'll see what happens there. Coby White is definitely going to be an intriguing case. His ability to score. He was top 10 in shooting guards and scoring last year. Top 10 to 12 in a lot of factors for shooting guards in that specific role. And so he could be a player that teams could look to pivot towards. We just got to see what's going to happen at the trade deadline and what that relationship between him and the Chicago Bulls really is like. And we shall see. But let me know your guys' thoughts down below on all those names that were mentioned in that article. That's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show @gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number 1 spot for everything basketball related. And I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.